Good morning. Hi, I'm Phil McPhail here with my brother Peter McPhail, and welcome to another episode of Ask Lifestyle Properties. And today we're going to answer some questions asked by one of our viewers at k.s.o'brien9459. Asks us, can you please provide information regarding the cutting or clearing of trees on coastal lots to enhance views, as well as the rules for clearing a lot to build on the ocean if you buy an undeveloped lot?
Great question, and we appreciate that. And I think before you start any project, your go-to resources. Number one, if you are in an organized town, you're going to talk to the code enforcement officer. So you'll hear the abbreviations CEO thrown out there a lot. That's a code enforcement officer. So call them and find out what the zoning is, and they will be a huge resource in helping you do that. If you are in an unorganized territory, then you need to check with the Land Use Planning Commission. And then always, certainly the Department of Environmental Protection. So you need to look at both. So usually when you fall within that 75-foot mark of the coastal high water mark, then
250 feet.
250 is the shoreland zone,
Yep.
But 75 feet is going to kick in.
Setbacks,
DEP will kick in for sure there. Right. So you need to check with both.
Yep. And make sure you check with each town if you're dealing with a town. They can have rules that are more restrictive than what the state has mandated.
If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the notification bell, all notifications, so you don't miss another video. Phil, talk to the viewers about the Mandatory Shoreland Zoning Act.
Sure, Pete. Well, you probably wonder, what do we need the Shoreland Zoning Act for? Well, in the state of Maine, we have some really great water quality up here, better than most states. We take it seriously. We've done a number of things to protect the waterways from phosphorus runoff from roads and clearings. So we've got three purposes for doing that. Is to protect the water quality is number one, protect our wildlife and their habitats, and also to preserve the natural beauty of the waterways.
Absolutely. And something that not quite has anything to do with shoreline zoning, but talk about protecting our lakes and our waters. Hey folks, if you're bringing a boat up from out of state or you're moving from one lake to another, before you do that, please always check your props and your boat and your trailers for invasive species.
Yeah, give that thing a good pressure washing before you drag it up to our beautiful waters here in Maine. So Pete, before we get into all the clearing and measuring trees and all that, let's talk about the clearing of vegetation within that 250-foot shoreline zone around different types of bodies of water.
No, that's a great question. Let's talk about streams first. Certain streams, you can have a 75 feet from the normal high water mark, right, or the upland edge of a forested wetland.
That's right.
So, and then your great ponds, your rivers, your tidal waters, non-forested freshwater and coastal wetlands is 250 feet.
Right. So there'll be varying restrictions on what you can clear within that 250 feet, and then we'll get into that a little bit later. There's a lot more to this, folks, and as Pete said earlier, you want to make sure you check with the CEO. Don't just trust the logging company you're going to hire to go do it. I've seen that go horribly wrong. If you get a new person out there, they're not going to do it on purpose, but you're responsible. So if you hire somebody to do your clearing for you and they screw it up, ultimately, the state or the town is going to come talking to you.
Exactly. So really work with your code officer. Have them come out on a site visit.
Mark the trees.
Mark the trees. Hey, this is what I want to do. Can I do this? Mm-hmm. And have it in writing from the code officer. At least have that site visit done and have some correspondence by email so you have everything documented.
Right.
All right, Phil, let's talk about clearing around forested wetlands and streams.
Okay. Well, the first thing you got to know about that is the buffer zone. The buffer zone around those is 75 feet. You can clear 40% of trees 4 inches or larger at breast height, which is considered 4.5 feet above the ground. And that's in any 10-year period. You can't clear more than that in a 10-year period. There's no clear cutting of areas in excess of 250 square feet within that 75-foot buffer zone.
And I think also you need to have a well-distributed stand of trees.
That's
so
right.
You don't want to take, all right, I've got 200 feet of frontage, I'm going to clear all these trees right through here. Mm-hmm. Keep a well-distributed stand of trees. Mm-hmm. And then I think where we've talked a lot about, Phil, is where people really make the mistake is that vegetation on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our filter. So when we say 4 inches or bigger at breast height, that doesn't mean you can cut everything that's less than 4 inches at breast height, because that does probably as much or more harm than taking the larger trees. Now you're talking your ground cover, your bushes. You can do some thinning, pruning of the trees up to a third of their height, but you can't cut every tree down. So don't mow a clear cut along the edge of that buffer zone. That's it.
Don't bring your bush hog in and get all the vegetation, and then bring wood chips in and gravel in and fill in the holes. I mean,
you've all seen it. Even a human walking trail or game trails beat down into the earth, and that's going to have the water collecting in it and shooting it right straight into whatever water we're trying to protect.
Exactly. And then outside the buffer zone, clearing openings less than 25% of the lot area permitted.
Right.
And or 10,000 square foot, whichever is greater.
Mm-hmm. You still have to leave that 40% stand of trees. You can't have any major clear cutting within that 250-foot zone. So you're talking outside the buffer, 75 feet to the 250-foot mark.
Yep.
So Pete, what about clearing around great ponds, rivers, and streams that feed into great ponds? What's the standards there for the buffers?
Sure, it's going to be the same as the stream setback, same qualification, except we're going to move it back 100 feet. So instead of the 75, you're within that 100-foot zone that those regs will apply.
Yep. So same standards, just a wider buffer.
Wider buffer, correct.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about a well-distributed stand of trees. Pete mentioned that in the clearing standards. And what they're doing there is they're looking at trees that are 2 inches or larger, and in any 1,250 square foot area within the lot size. And we're going to put this on the screen here, folks, as we're talking about it, so you can see what we're saying. There'll be a slide showing a grid, how that works, and also the point system.
The point system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you got to score 24 points in that zone within that 100-foot buffer zone. Okay, and 2 inch to 4 inch trees is 1 point. 4 to 8 is 2. 8 to 12 is 3. 8 to 12 is 4, and greater than 12 is 8 points.
8 points. And again, I'm going to keep going back to this, but as if you own that waterfront, go ahead and do your grid, mark your trees, and before you cut anything, have the CEO, have the code enforcement come out and check it. And
we've had it happen time and time. I've had it happen twice this year to customers of mine that, I told them they should talk to the CEO. They didn't do that, and the next thing I know, they're calling me saying, "Well, I got the neighbors called and they don't like my clear cut," and the code officers out there talking about fines and replanting and reforesting the lot. You don't want to. I know there's always that saying. Sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, but that can get quite expensive if you do it within the shoreland zone.
Right.
So Pete, the other variable on this is something called resource protection, and a lot of our towns have done this as part of their shoreland zoning ordinance. They've identified really significant bodies of water, wetlands, lakes, or whatever, steep slopes that they want to protect even more than the normal buffer, and that's called resource protection, and that's a 250-foot area that will allow no clearing within a 75-foot buffer around that body of water, and no building within 250 feet of the high water mark of that body of water.
Yeah, you're extremely limited what you can do within that 250 feet. Extremely limited.
Probably get away with a meandering path. To the water. Yeah. And you can still put a dock out. That's usually allowed, unless the town has some special restriction, and we don't see that very often.
Yeah, and I have seen, like, that meandering path's got to be tiny. It's very narrow.
6 foot, I think, is the width of it max, and it can't be a straight line.
It can't be a straight line.
That's the meandering part.
Wind it down there. And I have seen situations where if you are disabled and you need to have a cart to get you down to the waterfront, you can expand on that, the width of that, for somebody that's disabled.
That's under the
ADA.
Yeah. And we've had that happen.
We have had that happen.
Okay. Well, thank you all for watching our newest video here, and stay tuned for the next one.
Yeah, and don't forget, submit your questions either in the comments below or on the email here that's on the screen. We will get to your questions as soon as we can. This has been Peter and Phil McPhail with Lifestyle Properties Maine. We'll see you guys again real soon.
Thanks for watching.